like being at home. Good. Um, we are the Photo Historical Society of Canada. We're all about the preservation and dissemination of information on the history of photography in Canada, especially, but we're not that picky. We'll talk about the history of photography just about anywhere. And what defines history? Well, you know, if you took a picture last week, I think that counts. Anyway, if you're able, do join us next month, the third Wednesday of December, our annual show and tell. We'll be doing it online, and I'll explain to you why. There's a number of reasons. Chime in if you've got a neat thing to talk about, and feeling that I'll reach out to you, encourage you to come out and chat about stuff. On Thursday, a week from Thursday, the PHSC will be represented at the awards ceremony, the annual fall awards ceremony at Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson. We present an award to the student for the best master's thesis in the Film and Photo Preservation and Collection Management program. That's a master's program. We're very proud to be associated with TMU in that regard, as we are in other ways of funding awards and prizes at Ryerson. We like to think that if people think about photography and education about photography in Canada, we want them to think about TMU. We are running an auction on Saturday, December the 17th. Watch the website www.phsc.ca for a series of photographs of the stuff that will be available at this auction. It is an estates sale, S on the end. It's a number of sources. Actually, technically, some of them aren't estates because we're getting them from living people, but whatever. That's December the 17th. Check www.phsc.ca. Right, our next event will we're looking forward to meeting in person once again, but there's a few things that are holding us back. Number one, our usual venue of these past, 2 decades up at North York City Hall at the Memorial Library, they've now announced that they're going to be renovating that whole space. So we can't be in there. Now, Celio, of course, is looking at a new library, a brand new facility, which will be kind of exciting. They do have equipment there that will likely let us to do in-person and hybrid when the time comes. Watch for an announcement in the new year as to what's going on. I don't think people are going to bust our chops too much for not doing it in person, given, flu, COVID, RSVs, so on and so forth. Show and tell next month. Join us for that.
Excuse me, Clint, is that on the 21st of December? Can you bring the show and tell?
Let me just double check my calendar because it's a busy month and I want to give you the right date. So that's the 21st. That is correct.
Okay.
It's right after our auction.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for that, Jerry. Just reading from my notes again. Next, that meeting, by the way, will start off with our annual AGM. This is the official announcement thereof. Nothing too sophisticated. It won't take too long. Those of you who have attended our monthly meetings where it has been an AGM, it's a 5-minute thing at the beginning of it. I basically present a summary of what we've been up to and who's been doing it. If there's any questions, I field those, and then we quickly carry on with the regular meeting. So don't let that scare you off, folks. January event, we're just working out the speaker. He has been approached. He's a regular. Um, watch Eventbrite. Sign up on Eventbrite for our events. That way, they'll just pop into your inbox, and you'll know what's coming up. Join us early. Join us often. Some upcoming events. Again, check phsc.ca. February 5th, camera show here in Toronto. Our friendly rival, Mr. Gary Perry, is running his second show at the Canadian Japanese Cultural Center, just off the 404 in Eglinton. Beautiful facility, very, very bright, spacious. And then he'll be doing it again on April the 23rd. Stand by, stay tuned for when the next London show is. She's going to schedule it for somewhere around April-ish as well. I think as other shows pop up, I'll let you know. I think that's it. I will do a plug for the PHSC membership, $35, best deal on the planet. We send you a journal 3 or 4 times a year, and various discounts at our shows. I think a lot of people find that useful, pardon. And it's a good way of keeping in touch with us and us with you. At the very least, folks, if you're joining us for the first time, and I'm kind of stressing this because there's a goodly number of you, at the very least, go to our website, phsc.ca, Photographic Historical Society of Canada. Thank you. That's just showing up in the chat. Sign up at the very, very least for our email newsletter. It's a very teeny tiny compact version of everything that we promote, everything that we talk about. It's sort of like an appetizer for the journal and the rest of our programs. So like I say, it's free. We do not sell your email to anybody. We guard it very, very jealously. God knows people have tried to get that list from us, and there's thousands of you on that list. So if you have an event that you think we should be aware of, let us know, and if we think it's appropriate, we'll put it out as a blast or in the email newsletter. What else we got? Anybody got any ideas, thoughts? We're a very collegial group. I often tell speakers that nobody's going to ask you tricky, crazy questions. We'll boot you out.
Not often anyway.
Not too often anyway. We do it every now and then just to keep people on their toes. I'm kidding. We do encourage discourse and conversation. It's all about learning. We're all still learning and finding out fascinating stuff. So unless there's any questions of me that I can answer or sort of bluff my way through, I'm just gonna pass it over to our program coordinator, Mr. Celio Barato, who once again has nailed it, bringing in a great speaker. Stay tuned, folks. Third Wednesday of every month we do this, unless it's a special event, and there's some of those coming up. So we're very excited about the program for next year. I can tell you, can I tell them about April? Just a little tiny bit, Celio?
Just a tiny bit.
Okay,
twist my rubber arm.
Yeah, we did a symposium last year in cooperation with our friends in Europe, and it worked out really, really, really well. I think some people that we picked up from that conference have joined us here tonight, which I think is wonderful. So, Celio, over to you. I've spoken enough syllables. All yours, bud.
All right. So just to finish your thought, we are perhaps doing another symposium in April of 2023. What? Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. More details to come. Welcome, one and all, to tonight's PHSC program, where we have the pleasure and the honor of having Mr. Christopher Creighton deliver a fantastic talk on the Cirkut camera and panorama photography. Mr. Creighton has fallen in love with this technology and format maybe for the last 50 years. Is that right,
Yes.
Mr. Creighton? Something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a lifelong love affair, and we are going to be very delighted. What we're going to do is this meeting is being recorded for our archives. We are going to also go, once the talk gets started, I'm going to put this meeting in focus mode, which means you will be able to see Mr. Creighton and his slides. Okay, but you will not be able to see each other while the presentation is going on. During, once the presentation has concluded, we'll take a short break, right? Because we all need, 500 cc's of alcohol at some point. And we will engage in our Q&A. And that will, oh yeah, popcorn too. And that will begin about 10 minutes after Mr. Creighton's presentation. So we are loading, we are locked, and I would like to pass the microphone and introduce Mr. Christopher Creighton.
Thank you, Celio. I appreciate that. Okay. I guess just before we begin, I really do have to say that I feel like a bit of an interloper because I'm not really a collector of cameras. I collect tools, and then I use those tools to do things. Some of them are nice cameras, but to me, it's a matter of getting something and using it for what it was meant to do and for what I mean to do with it. So on that note, are you working the slides, Celio, or am I doing that?
You will be. I'm loading them up right now.
Okay. All right. So not that there's anything exciting to wait for, but okay, this is my title slide. And essentially the subtitle, using 100-plus-year-old panoramic cameras to make modern photographs the easy, hard way. And by that, I mean, I'm essentially a lazy person. So if I can find an easy way to do something, because there are many, many very difficult ways to use these cameras. But if I can find an easy way to do it, I find it simply because I don't like the work if I don't have to. So, okay, next slide, please. Okay, I don't know if I'm doing this or if you're doing this. Sorry.
Okay, you can advance the slides. You should be able to advance the slides. Just click on the screen.
Oh, on the screen. Okay, I got you.
And then, yeah, advance. You may advance the slides.
There we go. Okay,
Oh.
oops, one too many. Okay, I'll get the hang of this. Really, this is not technology. I'm much more comfortable with 120-year-old cameras than I am with this computer.
Not to worry, Chris.
So
after the first
I
few,
have
we'll be sailing.
I have two Cirkut cameras, a number 8 outfit, which I don't know if you can still see me, but it's the one right here. And I also have a number 5 Cirkut camera, and that's the one here. The number 8 outfit takes roll film up to 8 inches, and commercially that was 5-inch, 6-inch, and 8-inch film that it would take. And the number 5 Cirkut camera takes only 5-inch roll film. I've had the number 8 since 1988, and the number 5 was acquired in about 2006. Kodak stopped making film for the number 8, the big one, about 20 years ago. And I have no idea when it stopped making film for the number 5, but it was a very long time ago. By the way, in the next image is of me with the cameras. There we go. And this is the number 5 that I'm holding. Sorry, number 4 Panoramic. And I have to thank Les Jones for this because I just I just bought this from him at the camera show in London about a month ago. So I'm very fond of this camera. So yes, on the left, I don't know if, I guess that cursor is working. On the left is the number 8 Cirkut outfit. The outfit Kodak made, first of all, I could just run through the cameras. They made a number 5, which is this one, and it's a Cirkut camera. They made a number 6 Cirkut camera, which is just a bit bigger than this one. They made a number 6 Cirkut outfit, which would be a bit smaller than this one, the one on the left side. They made the number 8 outfit, which is what this one is. They made the number 10 camera, and they made the number 16 or Century Cirkut. So they made 6 different models. Excuse me. The difference between a camera and an outfit is that a camera, as in the number 5 on the right, can only do Cirkut photographs. Whereas the outfits, the number 6 and number 8 outfits, were fitted. They were essentially a full plate view camera, and you would take the focusing piece off the back, attach the Cirkut attachment to it, and that would turn it into a Cirkut camera. So they were pretty versatile. If you had a studio, you could use them for single photographs, and you could also use them for Cirkut work. Okay. I don't need to read this to you, but essentially what it says is that when I first got the number 8, film was still available for it. And if you can see me, this is the size of the film that went into it. It was available from Kodak. It was a catalog item. I used to order it sort of 5 or 6 rolls at a time. It was relatively expensive, but you got a big chunk of film. It was 8 inches wide and 5 feet long. So it was wonderful film. It was Verichrome pan, lovely, nice, slow film. But then they stopped selling it. So in order for me to continue doing Cirkut photographs, I had to find an alternative. And what I did was I went to litho film, which was not, it was okay. It's very slow. It was 6 ISO, and it's very orthochromatic. So I just said goodbye to clouds. They just, they were no longer a possibility. But it was usable. And if I processed it properly, I could actually get something pretty close to continuous tone with it. And so in order to, I'll just quickly show you, this is a processed piece of film in here, one that didn't work very well. It starts off with the paper leader. These are daylight loading films. Then you have, this is not a 6-foot piece, but then you have the piece of film, and then you have the paper tail at the end of it. So this would get wound into the camera. And once I started loading my own film, the problem was that I had to be able to get this piece of film lined up properly on the leader and the tail, so that the thing, when the film was going through the camera, it didn't go all crooked and get, believe me, I know this from experience. If it goes through the camera crookedly, it binds and rips and tears and ties itself into knots and really doesn't work very well. So I made jigs for loading, first of all, the 8-inch film, and then the 5-inch film, and it worked just fine because I could use safe lights to load the ortho film or the litho film. However, somewhere along the way, I discovered aerographic film. I can't remember what slide's next, but we'll have a look at it. Essentially, what happened was once I started using aerographic film, as you know, I could no longer, it's panchromatic. I could no longer use safe lights. So I still tried to use my jigs, but I was doing it in complete darkness with very, very sharp knives, and I kept cutting myself. which was, it's difficult to get good quality stuff when you've got blood spots all over your film. So what I did was, I was having a difficult time with this. The next slide. And then one day I don't know if anyone knows Bill Scanlon, but he taught for years and years and years in the photo arts program at Ryerson, which I attended very briefly in 1973. But many, many years after that, I was living in Schaumburg, and I discovered that Bill Scanlon lived around the corner from me. So we sort of I renewed my acquaintance with him. He didn't remember me from Ryerson, which is not unusual. And we were quite good friends. And I was one day complaining to him how I cut myself again trying to use these things in the dark. And he said, well, just get night vision goggles. And it was, that solved the problem. I got myself a pair of night vision goggles, and as long as you don't mind what you're looking at, sort of being like a movie that's kind of just out of sync with everything and bright green instead of the color it should be, and with absolutely zero depth perception because there's one lens. So I keep smashing into stuff because I forget that I'm as close to as I am to something. But anyway, they work really well. It means that I can work in the darkroom. I can slit the film. I can cut it to length. I can load it with the paper leads and tails onto the reels, ready to use in the camera. And I don't have to cut myself to pieces doing it. I was going to say something. No, it doesn't matter. So it's a really, really easy solution. It was a little bit of experimentation and research because I read the tech sheets that came with the film, and it said that it was not sensitive to light in the 730 to 940 nanometer range. I didn't know what a nanometer was, but I looked it up, and I bought initially a pair of night vision goggles that were supposedly set at 730 nanometers. But what I discovered was because I'm not a technician, I'm sorry, but because this is aerographic film, it does have a sensitivity to infrared because that's one of the, or an extra sensitivity to it because that's one of the features of aero film. So to get to it, the 730 nanometer goggles emitted light at 730 nanometers, which the film is still sensitive to. So I was fogging film with those. So after a bit of research, I found out that I needed 940 nanometer goggles. And this, I'm only telling you this in case you ever decide to do this yourself. You'd be crazy if you did, but if you do, get the 940 nanometer goggles because they won't fog the film. Okay, that's what it comes down. Sorry, I'll move on from that. There's a lovely photograph of my goggles with one lens. See all the little gizmos on it? They really don't do anything. What I did have to do on this, because it had LEDs for both 730 nanometers and 940 millimeters, I had to cover up, permanently sort of seal up the 730 nanometer LEDs so that they didn't expose the film. But it really is like being in a room, bright green daylight, no depth perception. But it allowed me to do what I needed to do. Okay, I pretty much talked about this. The film I use is 80. They have a different definition or a different description for it than ISO, but it's essentially ISO. AGFA Avifot film. It comes in a 9.5 inch by 250 foot roll. It's panchromatic. I have seen outdated rolls on eBay if you trust the sellers in the $250 to $300 range US. I just checked a little while ago with AGFA in South Carolina, and a new role, either 80 ISO or 200 ISO, is going to cost about $1,000 Canadian with shipping. So I'm being very careful with my film. Okay, this is what I was mentioning before about the jigs. I built jigs to do everything that I needed to do in the dark, so that I don't have to measure, I don't have to align things. I've made jigs to, all I have to do is basically put tape on things to hold them together. This is a photograph of the, excuse me, the 5-inch Cirkut film jig. And it's just made out of mat board. I was going to do a more elaborate version, but this still works, so I'm still using it. As you can see on the left side, that's where the film is laid down, emulsion side down, and then the yellow leader paper. I slide these. The reason there's tape on the bottom of these two pieces is they flip up out of the way. So I slide the leader or the tail of the yellow, the paper with the yellow and black sides. I slide that in until it hits, where the two arrows are. Paper's a little bit wider than the film. So that then lines up the film on the paper. I use a paper cutter to get an absolute 90-degree cut on both papers, butt them together, run a piece of film down there, flip the things up, roll the film in, and then attach it to the other end. So it only takes a couple of minutes to load a film with the paper leads and tails. Basically, when Kodak number 8 Cirkut film was available, I bought it, and of course I saved the reels and the papers, and so I now use, as I showed you before, I now use those to load film for the number 8 outfit. Trouble is, I did cut up a bunch of these to make into reels for the number 5, and now I'm running out of the paper. So I was looking around, and luckily, and fortuitously, I found a roll. Sort of the first place I looked. Well, these are what the rolls look like. So this is number 8 here, and number 5 here. But I found a source for the black paper at Michael's, actually, and it works really well. It's opaque, it's thin, it's fairly robust. So I haven't actually rolled film with it yet, but I've tested the paper, and it works well. So I don't have to feel sad about running out of yellow and black Kodak paper. And I at the end of this of the slides, I have a source. There's a page where you can find stuff, so it's listed there. Film processing has always been a bit of an issue. Initially, I made a tray out of wood. I coated it with polyester resin to make it waterproof, and I used that for developing, stop, fix, and washing. So it wasn't ideal by any means. And with the number 8 camera, a full Cirkut 360-degree panorama with my favorite lens, which is right here. It's a Fujinon 210 millimeter. Lovely lens. It's about a 5-foot long negative. So as you can imagine, trying to seesaw that through something or trying to have that in the tray, it takes a lot of developer. It's very difficult to do and not get marks on it somehow. So what I did was, this is not my idea. This is something I saw online. making tanks out of ABS plumbing, tubing or pipe and fixtures. And I have a photograph coming up of those. And they work really well because the ABS is black, it's light tight. Because it's plastic, it doesn't absorb anything. It takes a minimum of chemistry to process the film. I don't have to fill the things up with chemistry. I know, according to how many square inches of film, how much chemistry I need. So it's a pretty easy way, and especially since I've made them daylight loadings, well, not daylight loading, daylight processing. So I load them in the darkroom, and then I can take them out into my workroom to do the processing. And I'll show you what they look like. These are, now that's gray, but it's still, I couldn't find any black, but it's still light tight. The one on the top, these are for the 5-inch film, because the 2.5-inch pipe inside circumference is about, it's less than, or it's greater than 4 inches. So, or 5 inches rather, sorry, than the 5-inch width of the film. So I just sort of put the film into the tube, put the proper amount of chemistry in, and just, I have 2 cradles that I built with just 4 casters. I should have taken a photograph, but I forgot. So I just set the pipe on the cradle and rock it back and forth every 30 seconds, tip it from end to end every now and again. And it processes really well. So that the one on the top that is gray is used for, that's for a full 360-degree view from the number 5 circuit. The one in the middle is for doing 2 rolls at once. The reason it looks the way it does is because I originally built it to do 4 rolls, but it was really hard to get the chemistry to flow properly. So I cut it in half and made 2 roll processing tanks out of it. And the one at the bottom was my first attempt, and that was for a single roll. And you notice these little squiggly bits on the ends. Well, I discovered that 3 90-degree turns will make it, serves as a light trap. So each one has 3 90-degree elbows on them, and then the end caps just screw on. So that way I can turn them into daylight processing tanks. So I can take them out in the workroom where I have more room, more light, so I can see what I'm doing. And that's where I do the processing. This is a tank for the 8-inch film. It's 4-inch ABS pipe. The reason it has all these extra bits is because I kept experimenting with lengths. If I'd known when I started it how long I needed it to be, there would just have been one piece of pipe with a fixture on each end. But of course, I never do things the easy way. Even when I'm trying to do them the easy way, they're not the easy way. But then again, going back to the subtitle, processing this film is difficult, but this is the easiest way I've found to do it. And again, it has the 3 90-degree bends on the end, so that this is again a daylight processing tank, and it has the big plug on the far end to allow me to slide the film into it. And this, you can see sort of abrasion marks there, and at either end, that's where it rides in the cradle with the 4 casters. So I can just roll it back and forth to do the agitation. And then I think every minute or every half, remember, I haven't processed for a bit, so I'm not exactly sure about that, but I just pick it up and pick one end up so that the developer can slosh, or the chemistry can slosh from one end to the other. And here's my high-tech piece of equipment. This is just one of those under the bed storage bins. I use this for washing the film after it's processed. I also use this for doing alternate process printing. I have a whole bunch of these, by the way. Okay, printing them. I don't have an enlarger that I know that people have made motorized enlargers to enlarge circuit negatives, but that's way beyond my capabilities. So I just contact print everything. And I prefer to do them as cyanotypes, Van Dykes, or gum bichromate. But I do usually initially I'll do one on photographic paper just to see what it's going to look like. And the second paragraph you can read or not, but essentially it just says that digital scanning is an option, but I don't like working on the computer, and I'm not at all interested in scanning negatives and making prints on the computer. That just has no interest for me. So if people like to do that, that's wonderful, but it's not for me. This is an example of a negative produced by the number 5 Cirkut camera. I've been doing. I sort of had this idea that generally Cirkut cameras were used probably more than for anything else for doing group portraits. So I'm doing group portraits of not people. So in this case, this is one of my group portraits of trees. And I've done a whole series of trees essentially in woodlots and standing in rows in fields, all sorts of stuff. But these are my trees, group portraits. Example of a photograph I did in Stratford, just trying to get the feel for the process. It's been a long time since I've done Van Dykes and cyanotypes, so I'm sort of having to reacquaint myself with them. I can't believe that in probably the 30 years since I did a lot of these, chemistry has changed somehow, because it's not as easy as it used to be to do them, and I don't understand why. But anyway, it's 2 examples of this is the way I prefer to print the negatives, as alternate processes rather than just straight silver prints. This is a photograph of the back of my contact printing frame. It's simply a rectangular frame made from 1x2 pine. I've rabbited out a groove around the front of it. I glued a piece of plate glass in with silicone sealant. The back plate is 3 bits of plywood hinged together, and then the pressure springs are pieces of 1 inch wide, but I think they're about 1/16 of an inch thick. Sorry, they're about 1/8 of an inch thick. Steel strap from Canadian Tire. The hole drilled in the middle. They're attached to the individual plates, and then large washers on the end so that they can slide under those washers to put some pressure on the backing plate, and it works really well. It cost all of maybe total $7 or $8, and I had the glass, but it works really well. And this is a photograph of a larger one. This will do an 8-inch by 5-foot negative. So I can do a full 360-degree view from the big camera using the Fujinon lens in this contact printing frame. And it's same construction as the other one, just it's bigger. Okay, getting away from circuits for a minute. This is my recently acquired number 4 Panoramic. Years ago, I had a number 1 Panoramic, and it the number 1 takes 120 film, and it gives you a 2 1/4 by 7-inch negative. It covers about 112 degrees. And in 1987, I applied for and received a Canada Council Explorations grant to travel across the country doing research at archives and various institutions for a book on Canadian panoramic photography. I traveled from coast to coast, and on those travels, I took my little #1 Panoram with me, and I have about 200 Panoram photographs, 2¼ by 7-inch photographs taken pretty much from coast to coast with that little camera. And stupidly, I traded it away for something years ago, and I regret that to this day. And I've been looking for a replacement for it. And at the London show about a month ago, I noticed that Les Jones had this one. And we agreed to a price. This is a #4 Panoram. This gives a negative that's 3 3¾ inches by 12 inches, and it covers 142 degrees of horizontal view. And this is, I don't know if you've ever heard of Josef Sudek. He was a Czech photographer. This amazing story. In the First World War, he had his, I think, right arm blown off by a grenade. And he took up photography after the war, and eventually in the 1950s, one of his favorite cameras was a #4 Panorama. How he ever used that thing, how he ever got full film into it and out of it is beyond me, because I struggle with having 2 good hands being able to do it. But he did some quite spectacular photographs of Prague and various areas in Paris as well. But if you haven't seen his work, it's Sudek, Sudek, Josef, and he did some really amazing stuff. Another photographer you may know about is Jeffrey James. He's British-born, Canadian citizen now, I believe. He did a series called Italian Gardens, and they are just some of the most beautiful photographs you'll ever see. He used the #3 Panorama, which is a little bit smaller than this one, but it's a Panorama nonetheless. They make beautiful photographs. I'm still sorting this one out. It had a couple of quirky issues that just wanted to eat the film rather than roll it through. So I've pretty much got those solved now. So the next step is to roll some film for it. So that's a project I'm working on now. And basically, I'm having to cut the paper, the lead and tail paper, the proper size, which is just, it's about 3 thou under 4 inches wide, and make the reels. Luckily, when I got the camera from going blank here, from Les. Yeah, thank you. There was a reel in it, so I had something to work from. The last sentence here, I'm not a vandal. The reason that I put that in is because what I do, well, I'll show you what the reels look like. What I do is I take the reel on the right is the one that came with the camera. That's the proper reel for this camera. It was Kodak 103 film. Hasn't been made in like a million years. But I discovered that the metal ends and the diameter of the wood core on this reel or spool is pretty much the same as on all the wood or metal-ended spools. So what I've been doing is finding these wherever I can. I had a few of them, Les sent one, so I just need a few more now. But what I do is I cut the wood core in half, and then I cut this thin wall brass tubing, which the inside of that is the same as the outside diameter of the wood. And I just slide the 2 halves of the original wood and metal spool onto the brass tubing, a bit of epoxy on either end, and I've got spools for the camera. So yes, I may be altering existing spools that are really old and probably should be left alone, but I'm doing it for a good cause. So I don't consider myself to be a vandal. I guess that's open for interpretation. Okay, and what this is, I'll just go through it very quickly. Just a note, sort of a quick review of Cirkut cameras. Again, my number 5 was built from 1914 to 24, and it had the shortest run of all the Cirkuts. It wasn't all that popular, and it does, you know, it sounds kind of crazy saying that a 5-inch by 41-inch negative is small, but when you're used to the number 8s, where a 360-degree view is 8 inches by 60 inches, 5 by 41 is small. So I do notice that it's psychologically it's much smaller than the number 8 film. Number 6 Cirkut camera, and this is unusual. In the number 6, they made a camera and an outfit. So the number 6 Cirkut camera was just a little bit bigger than the number 5. It looks very much the same. The number 6 Cirkut outfit was a little bit smaller than the number 8. The number 8 Cirkut outfit is the one on my right, it was the most popular. It was the most popular Cirkut model in Canada. I guess Canadian photographers were smart and realized that they could get two cameras for one by having an outfit. The next one was a number 10 Cirkut camera, and it was a camera. It was not an outfit, so it was only used for Cirkut photographs, and it was the popular choice for most American photographers. And finally, we have the granddaddy, the number 16 or Century Cirkut. It used, the biggest film it used was 16 inches wide, which is this wide. I don't know how anybody ever used these things. It was monstrous. It weighed, I think I read somewhere that the camera, tripod, all the equipment weighed about 80 pounds. Who could deal with that? Anyway, but they did, and there are prints around here and there made from the number 16 Cirkut. They sold relatively few of them because, and they had a short production run because they were really expensive. And I tried to find a price, but I couldn't. I know they were many times more than the number 10 Cirkut. They were monsters. The Panoramic cameras, they came in 3 models. The number 1 is the one I had years ago, 2¼ by 7-inch image covering horizontal view of 112 degrees. The number 3, which is what Jeffrey James uses still, I think, gives you an image 3¼ by 10 3/8 inches with 120-degree field of view. And then the number 4, the one I have, it produces negatives 3½ inches by 12 inches and covers a horizontal view of 142 degrees. And this, I find this interesting. I've been rereading some stuff lately, and I'm starting to see connections that I hadn't seen before. The Cirkut, actually the Cirkut camera was patented by William J. Johnson, who was born in Canada and spent most of his life in Canada in 1904. The camera was supposed to be manufactured by Rochester Panoramic Camera Company in Wyoming, but it ran into financial difficulty and the patent was transferred. I don't know whether that means that it was sold or whether the Rochester Panoramic Camera Company owed money to Century Camera Company, but at any rate, the patent was transferred to the Century Camera Company, and that became the number 10 Cirkut camera. And I qualified this by saying one of the first full circuit panoramic cameras was designed by John Connon, but in fact, everything I found said the first one was designed by John Connon of Aurora in 1888. The cameras were built by Rudolf Stern in Berlin and sold by C.P. Stern of New York. And that firm was famous for their detective cameras, but sort of hide in your coat to take pictures of people doing things they shouldn't do, I guess. And it was sold as the Wonder Panoramic camera, and a negative measured about 3 1/8 inches by 18 inches long. And the problem was that John Connon went into partnership with the Sterns. They built all these cameras. He was using the stripping film, which had a paper backing, and it was quite a process involved in getting a transparent negative off of it. But when Kodak came out with their nitrate transparent film, they made it either an eighth or a quarter of an inch wider than the stripping film. And the Wonder panoramic camera was designed to take the stripping film, so the film wouldn't fit in this camera. So they tried everything to try to cut it down, but it wouldn't work. It didn't work out. So basically, they stopped selling them because you couldn't get film for them, which is too bad, because I've seen some images at the Ontario Archives, excuse me, made with John Connon's prototype, and they're beautiful. And that was before anyone else had a full circuit, full view panoramic camera. So I have any questions or comments or corrections? I expect the corrections are going to be greater than the questions or comments, but please feel free to contact me. I have my email address and my phone number there. And finally, this is my where to find stuff page. So the paper that I'm going to use to make the leads and tails for the number 4 panoramic film, there's the information. Get it at Michael's. It's actually pretty reasonably priced. It's about $12 a roll. The AGFA aerial film, that's where you can get it. You've got $1,000 that you don't need. And check eBay for a lot of the resellers for some reason are in India, and the claim is made that they've sold all kinds of this stuff and nobody's ever complained about it. But before I would spend $350 US on a roll of film, I would want to make sure that it is okay. And it's not. Some of it's not. Is only 10 years out of date. So if it's been properly stored, it should still be fine, but it's the luck of the draw, I think. The brass tubing to make the reels, that's where I get it. And I buy some of my chemistry for alternate processes from Photographer's Formulary here in Montana, I think. I believe that's the end of my presentation. Something I did, I guess, can you see if I hold something up?
We can see it.
See this?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. The way that I make the rolls, the spools for the number 5 Cirkut camera now is actually pretty simple. I take 120 reels, cut them in half. That's half of a 120 spool. Sorry. By big fender washers from the hardware store, drill them out to a 1/2 inch diameter, slip that over the end, glue it onto the, that's treated with a blackening agent, but I paint them when they're done. glue that onto the end to get enough diameter so that the paper and the film aren't out too close to the outside edge, and then just glue that into a piece of brass tubing, and there's a spool for the 5-inch film. So,
Hmm,
all right,
fascinating.
that wasn't
Thank you.
tedious.
Thank you, Chris. I believe there's a number of
You're welcome.
questions in chat.
Yeah, we have
Do you want to go
we have
through
quite a
those,
bit.
Salio?
Yes, we have quite a bit of questions, which is fantastic. So just before we get through to our Q&A, how about we have a short break so that we
Okay.
can get ourselves something to, right, for our throats. And we will be back here in, let's see, it is now
903.
9:03. How about we meet back here at 10 after?
Brilliant.
Okay,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
All right?
Yep.
Excellent. So let's take a break until
thank you.
10 after 10.
Thank you.
That was great, Chris. That was brilliant. I think
Thank you.
there's gonna be a few questions.
See you in a few minutes.
Yep.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The questions are coming fast and furious.
You can skip
Really
my
cool.
question. He covered it in the presentation. So
Right. Thank you, Jerry.
mine was just the differences between the different types of cameras. So,
Okay. So he went into detail there. Excellent. All right. Any questions for yours truly?
Hmm. Oh, Salio,
Yes, sir.
could you please make a note? Because the 18 things we discussed yesterday, there was a 19th.
Oh.
And it involves the thing that you teach. I was approached by somebody at the Book and Paper about a movie. She's looking for a movie, an old
Okay.
movie. And of all people, I thought of you. So make a note to yourself. I've got to tell you about this. It's
Okay.
amazing. I'm
All
just
right.
gonna make a note to myself, Celio movie. I think it may be a topic, it may be and she's telling me about this, and it's all about, it's very much like Nosferatu.
Ooh.
She's looking for a movie that was like 1914 or something like that. It was similarly banned or destroyed or something like that.
Hmm.
For those of us who joined us for the Nosferatu event last month, we know that the current version of that movie has been cobbled together. That movie too was, all the originals were ordered destroyed by the estate of Bram Stoker. What we have today, 100 and however many years later, is cobbled together from 35 millimeter prints, 16 millimeter prints, and 8 millimeter prints. Now, she's looking for this movie. She believes similarly, maybe it already exists somewhere in an archive that an educator like yourself might be able to find. Or it may be a Nosferatu-like project.
Okay.
So I'll share that. It blew my socks off. So.
Very cool.
I forgot to mention that to you. Forgive.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So once again, welcome everyone. So you are welcome to turn on your cameras and tell us where you're visiting us from. So the PHSC is based in Toronto, on the internet now, right? But before COVID, we used to meet here in Toronto at the North York Central Library branch of the Toronto Public Library, where I believe the program ran for many years. And for the last 2 years, we've been meeting online, and the program was reactivated about a year ago, doing online Zoom webinar, not webinars, but guest lectures and other fun stuff every now and then, online show and tells and presentations like that. We have seen interest in our guest lectures grow from all over the map. So I would like to see who's here from where in Canada are you? So I'm in Toronto, and I think Clint is in Toronto.
Oh, I'm in deepest darkest of Etobicoke, which is right near Mississauga. But I'm
Yeah.
still in Toronto. I see we've been joined by Anjay, who has spoken to our group. Brilliant photographer. You may be familiar with his book, Après Notman, After Notman. Anjay he was one of our speakers a number of years ago. He attempted to recreate Notman photographs, getting the elevation right, getting the light, the sun in the right spot, and it was a challenge because for some of the images, the window of opportunity to take at the same angle so that the shadow was the same was about 2 or 3 days sometimes. So welcome. It's good to see you again, sir. Hopefully he's not making a tea right now as I'm saying such nice things about him. Anyway, sorry. So where are
Great.
people from? Where are people from here? Aurelia. Oh, Russ, where are you now? You're up in northern somewhere up north of Toronto, Mr. Forfar.
Third cohort, PPCM, Oklahoma City. Welcome, Allison.
You know,
Hi, sorry, I was on mute.
That's all right. Well, welcome. Thank you
Thank
for joining us.
I think somebody put it in our Facebook chat for the FPPCM group.
I wonder who that might have been.
Was that you? I
I'm
don't know who.
uncertain.
I'd have to
I'm
look.
uncertain. Yeah. I could be wrong. It may have been me.
I don't know if you. I do have
Well,
my
there you are.
Ryerson old T-shirt or sweatshirt on.
Yeah. Awesome.
So it's funny when Mike popped up. I was like, I was in Mike's class way back in the day. But I work at the Brett Weston Archive in Oklahoma City now. So.
Oh wow! And how long have you been there now?
4 years, almost
Nice.
5.
I thought Brett burned all his negatives.
He burned the negatives, but we have all the prints.
Well, thank goodness.
Yes. So there was a lot. We have a donation program and we get them out into collections.
You can hear me.
And so actually through, I think we had to do it through the embassy or somebody, but Ryerson, now Toronto Metropolitan, got a set. So.
Great.
Excellent. All right. And I see James here is from Syracuse, New York, just across the lake. Could have swum over today.
Well, Chris invited me, and I'm a big Cirkut shooter fan, so I had to attend. So
thank you very much for coming.
There's
we're very
beautiful
glad to have you.
images too.
Yeah, they are.
James, the next show, the next camera show in Boston, I think that might be the closest one to you, is I believe on April the 23rd. That's the FISNY people, the Photo Historical Society of New England. Big show in the north end of Boston.
And leave it like that and see if they can hear me.
I've heard of that. Yeah, it's right now I have all the cameras I want.
Aw, you can't have all the.
You can always have some more.
Well, I have all the Cirkut cameras, including the 16, and I've shot with them. So the 16 is just a very hard camera to use, but
Try going arrow left.
Great. All right. Well, let's it is 12 after. We've had our break. Thank you all for pitching in and letting us know where you're coming from. Hello, Russ.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Clear.
Hi,
Very
Russ.
perfect. Yeah. All
I
right.
got to tell you, I've been doing a Zoom call 3 times a week with a bunch of artists for a number of years since COVID kicked in. And this system here with Endbright is the clunkiest goddamn thing I've ever run into. It's outrageous. It took me over 20 minutes to get in this time. And the only reason I fought for it this time is I wanted to say hi to Chris. Because the first time I saw Chris was at the McMichael Gallery. He was walking around with a Kodak Panoramic camera, the one that takes 120 film. He was talking about that he sold. And I just wanted to say, hey, Chris, how are you, man?
I'm well, thank you, Russ. And you know what?
I'm not-
I thank you for the number 8 because you told me where to find this camera.
I probably did. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
living outside of Owen Sound, closer to Wyerton, in the middle of fucking nowhere. That's what the real estate agent said.
Well, you know what? I'm not that far from you, so I'll have to come up for a visit.
Done.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's, anyway, like I said, I've been doing these Zoom calls. With what happens is you get an invite from the moderator. You click on it, you make 2 little clicks, and it's on. It's none of this around and around and reintroduce this and that and all that all over again. Monday,
Oh.
Monday I was diagnosed with ALS, so for me to have to punch in the Russ at digitalrefugees.net 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times going around in circles is driving me crazy. And like I said, if it wasn't Chris Creighton on the other end of this thing, I wouldn't have signed up again because I quit this when it started way back when. It was just too much trouble to get in.
Hmm.
So I don't know
Hmm.
how this works with Eventbrite, but you know, the other one I use is a straight Zoom thing. I have the Zoom app and that's it. We do these 2 or 3 nights a week where we get together and yak.
So I actually received a couple of questions about that today, and this is the first time that we experienced this. So I wonder if it's something going on with the system for connected to our events. I did send a link out to a couple of people directly, but when you first register for the event, you should get an email with a ticket with a link that
Yeah.
says join event.
And then they want you to punch in all the information over again and you do that and it still doesn't go through. Like I said, I spent over 20 minutes fighting this. And if it
Yeah.
hadn't been for Chris on the other end of this, I was going to throw my hands up and cancel it again.
Oh my goodness.
Listen, Mark, I use Zoom in the Eventbrite, and all I have to do is click right on the panel, and it puts all my information in automatically. You don't have to type it in.
Well, I'm still sort of non-compos mentis digitus in some ways, but I've got enough. But you know, this other straight Zoom call works 3 times a week if I want it, so I don't get it.
Mhm.
I really don't.
Is there a
Chris, you're
12-year-old?
looking good. Where are you living now?
Who, me?
No, Chris. Hey, is that Mark?
Yeah.
Oh.
How you
Hey,
doing?
Mark.
I've been living in Aurelia for 12 years.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
Lake Couchiching.
No Simcoe. I'm on
Oh,
Simcoe.
sorry, you're on Simcoe. Sorry.
Yeah. I did renovations to the cottage, and I've been living here for 12 years, living the good life.
There you
I've been up here a little over 4 years. We named it Hummingbird Hill.
go. Okay, folks, we've got questions piling up left, right, and center. We
Yes.
should probably
So
that's
let's
go
get
to-
all I
our
wanted to say.
Q&A session started.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to log off so you can guys get down to real business, but see what you can do about getting out of this Eventbrite thing because it's making me crazy.
Thank you very much, Russ. I am going to look into that because that doesn't sound like
It should be
a
us.
good thing at all.
No, and Chris,
Thank you. And apologies.
love seeing you.
Good to
Where are
see
you
you.
living now?
Pardon?
Where are you living?
Mitchell, just west of Stratford.
Oh, you're over that way. Okay, I'm up
Yeah.
this way by Owen Sound then.
Yeah.
Okay. We will yak. I'm Russ at digitalrefugees.net
Okay, I think I have your email somewhere. Yeah, okay.
or Russ
write
at
that down.
Cominet.com is also still alive if you need
Okay,
that. Okay, thanks guys. Tally ho.
Tally ho.
good to see you, Russ.
All right. Go for it.
Great.
Sally.
So without any further delay, let's get started with our Q&A segment of tonight's evening. And we got a lot of questions here in the chat box for you, Chris. The first one that I'd like to read is from James. Where'd you get your goggles? I have the same problem.
Okay, I found them on eBay 5 years ago, whenever I got them. I actually got them secondhand from a gamer in Edmonton. But they're gaming goggles, for the guys who run, go out in the woods at night with their paintball
Paint
guns
guns
and
okay.
yeah, shoot at one another. Well, I can't imagine running through the woods with these things though, because really it's zero depth perception. Like there must be a lot of head injuries from those guys. But they are, I mean, they were relatively inexpensive. I think it was maybe like $150 used, but they've been great.
Great.
I mean, I couldn't do what I'm doing if I didn't have them.
Excellent. We have another
eBay
question.
used.
I have another question from Ken, who agrees with you about computers and asks about salted paper, if you have tried printing on salted paper.
I haven't, but that's on my list. Thanks, Jamie. That's on my list of processes. The trouble is, I have a short season to do alternate process because I like to use the sun to expose the prints. I do have a UV light source, but I find that I get very, very flat results with it. I don't get any kind of contrast. So that's just for next summer, the dry solid prints.
All right. We have a question from Ian Archer, who wants to know if the Berlin you mentioned is Berlin, Germany, or the old name for Kitchener, Ontario.
No, it was
so Laura
Berlin.
would be close.
It was Berlin, Germany. Yeah, the cameras were made in Germany, shipped over, only to find out that the George Eastman, according to everything I've read about him, was not a nice guy.
Not a nice man.
He had a tendency to, apparently this is hearsay, but I believe it. His lawyers, his patent lawyers, sort of were able to delay other people's patents all over the place so that then he could file the patents before the people who actually came up with the ideas had a chance to get a patent for it. So basically he stole ideas from all kinds of people. So,
Wow.
It was his way or the highway.
pardon?
It was his way or the highway was a very early comment.
Yes,
about him.
yeah. He much was the czar of photography and he got what he wanted.
It
So
was very much like Einstein and light bulbs. They or what's his name down in Florida? And
Edison.
Edison.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
they were good buddies.
Edison
Edison and
they
George Eastman were
tight. Yeah.
very, very good buddies. They were tight.
Yeah.
And so when they owned they had a corporation, that motion picture corporation, where a number of studios came together to form this company headed by Edison. And if you wanted to make a movie in the United States, you could only buy film stock from one supplier, right? George Eastman, and you had to apply for permission first before they would sell it to you. Yeah. All right. We have another comment here from Ken. Eventbrite sucks. Thank you. Let's see. I lost my place here. Mike Robinson asked, how is the panning speed adjusted for the slower films you need to use?
well, basically the way it works is the panning speed depends on the gear you put in it. So for instance, with this camera, this is the Turner Reich triple convertible lens that came with it. And with both front and back elements in place, it has an 8-inch focus. And for 8-inch, I have a gear in it now. Here are the other two gears. Depending on, well, first of all, you have to hear the camera because it's just, you can't experience a Cirkut unless you hear it. Can you hear that?
No,
No, it's probably too far away from the mic.
Oh.
Is it like a wound clock spring that you wind up?
Yeah, but it has a real word to it because these gears
Oh, yeah.
engage with a ring gear around the turntable. And basically the gear for, how to explain this, for the lens that's in it now, there are 3 gears. One gear is for 25-foot focus, one gear is for 50-foot focus, and one gear is for 100-foot focus. And so when you focus the camera, there are little guides on the side here, and it will show you for the lens you're using, which it points to which gear you choose for that distance you're focusing. And so the larger the gear, the faster it goes. And each focal length has its own set of gears. So for this camera, I have 9 gears. 3 for 8-inch, 3 for, I can't remember the other, I wrote it down. Sorry, 10-inch, 3 gears for 10-inch, 3 gears for 18-inch, and 3 gears for 24-inch focal length.
Wow.
And each one is 1 gear for 25 feet, 1 gear for 50 feet, and 1 gear for 100 feet. So there's a little bit of fiddling that goes with this. It isn't just, and then on top of that, it has shutter speeds, which are, I'm always amused by the shutter speeds from a Cirkut camera. They range from 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 of a second, 1/4 of a second, 1/6 of a second, 1/8 of a second, 1/9 of a second, 1/10 and 1/12 of a second. Those are the equivalent shutter speeds.
Are those controlled by blades that you open and close, like with a slot
No,
width?
it's just this little, I don't know if you can see it, this little indicator on the back here. Like a little arrow that points to the different speeds.
Okay.
And that there's a tensioner inside. And as you adjust that, it adjusts the tensioner so that it, well, I can, you know what, I'm very quiet, maybe you can hear it. You hear that?
Nope.
No? Okay,
It's
so
not picking it up for some reason.
the different speeds give a different sound because 1/2 inch is the slowest one, 1/12 is the fastest. Sorry, it's a much faster, more high-pitched sound. The faster the effective shutter speed is.
Okay, thank you.
It's
So-
really a very, very complicated camera for the time.
So does that mean then, if the shutter stays open for 1/10 of a second, does that mean that it takes 1/10 of a second for the camera to spin?
No, that's just a relative thing.
Relative, yeah.
I see.
Because what happens when you turn it on, see there's this slot here,
Oh, yeah.
basically the shutter. And so
Right, I see.
when I turn it on, it opens that little door.
Okay.
And so
I
it's
understand now.
exposing just a narrow slit
Band.
image as the film or the camera's rotating in one direction at a certain speed, the film is going in the opposite direction at the same speed.
Right. So it's kind of like a flatbed scanner, the way the
photograph.
flatbed scanner sensors work.
Right,
they only capture a little bit at a time
yeah.
as they're in motion.
Yeah, it's just it just captures a very narrow image.
So,
Looking that way as the film's going that way.
so
Right,
it's
and then
actually-
I imagine sitters would relax once the camera had passed them.
Yes, and the other thing that you see occasionally, and actually I saw my brother's here somewhere. I did a photograph in Port Hope, well, 20 years ago now. No, more than that, 30 years ago, of the reopening of the band shell, and I did a Cirkut photograph of everybody who showed up for that. And my eldest brother, who's here somewhere, because the camera always scans from left to right, he was at this end of the crowd, and once the camera went by him, he ran around behind the camera and got at the other end. So he's in the same photograph twice. And if you look at group photographs, especially if they're not sort of really, really formal, you'll find school photographs. This happens a lot. You'll see the same kid or a group of kids here and then the same group over here, because after the lens went by them, you would run around behind the camera and get at the other end of the group.
That was great fun back in the
Oh,
day.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it was. I mean, it was, I'm sure they got in trouble for it too, but why not? Yeah, so it is a, you know, it's a, the nice thing is if you're doing a group, you know, just tell them you only really have to be still when you see that the lens is coming toward you. And then after the lens goes by and starts to point something, then you can relax. So some people don't quite understand that, but it's okay.
Well, while we've got Mike Robinson involved, I've got to ask him. Mike is creative and inventive. Mike, are you going to talk in some forum or publication about the thing you made and used in Chicago the other day?
You mean,
Yes.
I didn't use my panoramic camera in Chicago.
Oh, but you did. See, that's why you need to tell the world. I'm misinformed.
My background is a panoramic view taken with, that's what the next question I had for Christopher is if he's aware of the 1844 Frederick von Martens panorama daguerreotype camera.
Yes, I am, with the curved plate.
Yeah, so the image I have as my background is the daguerreotype I've taken of my studio.
I've been at one of your workshops with the Photo Educators Forum. Hello, Felix.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to, take away from that, but I originally asked about the speed and all that is because it's very complicated for me. With a daguerreotype process is much slower.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular exposure was 21 swings of the camera.
So you're not cranking it.
I set it up to work with a battery with electric motor.
Okay.
So I have two speeds, 1 minute pan and 2 minute pan.
Right. And I have no idea whether that would be fast, slow enough, or
yeah.
What's the relative ASA of a daguerreotype plate?
8.5 stops less than 100.
Okay, that's pretty slow. When I was at, the only sort of relationship I have to that is when I was at graduate school, I built a fairly big swing lens camera that took 8-inch ortho film, and I made the exposure because I'm not an engineer. I couldn't figure out how it should go or how slow it should go. I didn't have the means to make any sort of drive system, so it was I just put a wand on I put a rod from the lens at the nodal point of the lens. Okay. Attached a rod to that, and I just did this back and forth a whole bunch of times, and then processed it, and like I did a light reading, and then it was either underexposed or overexposed, or if I was lucky, it was good. But if it was really underexposed, and I would do it twice as many times, or if it was overexposed, I do it half as many times, and I just kept going until I figured out how many times to swing it back and forth to get and it worked. I mean, obviously it couldn't do anything if the subject was moving, but for landscape it was fine.
Yeah.
But,
All right.
in answer to your question, I'm sorry, I have no idea. Calculate that. I guess
you can calculate
it's a different matter with orthofilm than it is with daguerreotype plates.
Calculating the exposure is basically the width of the slit, and there's a formula relating to the width of the slit and the speed that the slit is moving on the film plane. So I mean, it's I'd have to look it up. I actually have calculated it, and it's not that hard.
Mhm.
So then, and the old Kodak, the original Kodak Cirkut cameras actually had the ability to change the slit width in order to change exposure as well, but that became too complicated, so they took it out.
Hmm.
And basically, also the narrower the slit, the sharper it is, but the more sensitive it is for bending when the film isn't moving smoothly. So there's
Right.
various factors there.
That begs my question. Chris, with your work with the Panoramic Kodaks, do you know there are 2 speed settings on that camera?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you know relatively what they are?
I did work it
What
out
the sweep is, what,
for the number
know-
1, but I haven't even thought about that for the number 4 yet. I'm sure
I'm
somebody
talking
has.
about the number 1, if you know that one.
Pardon?
I'm talking about the number 1, if you know that one.
I did know it when I had one.
Ah,
You know, I may have made a note somewhere. It would be a
mea
matter of
culpa.
not. Yeah, I haven't had that camera for, no,
I
probably.
think it's in the manual, except the problem is the speed basically changes over time as the spring wears out.
Oh
So
my God, yes.
you can look at what the original manual said, but I'm just not sure that it would be accurate to your situation.
Yeah, I know. I was looking for a relative suggestion because I've got one and I've used it, but it consistently underexposes.
Yeah, I had that problem. I was playing with the number 4 and I was having a hard time trying to get enough exposure with it. So
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess faster film.
and actually, if you're interested in the swing lens cameras, try the Alvistas. They are awesome.
I've got
Yeah,
a
I
number
just-
4 Alvista, but I've never tried it yet because I haven't slept the film. Thanks to Chris, now I know how.
Yeah. No, they actually have a baby Alvista, which if you get the one with the fans, it takes great pictures. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just totally off, well, sort of on the topic. A couple of years ago, I was watching a film. I think it might have been French, but it was sort of a period piece. And lo and behold, there was this guy standing there with an Alvista taking a photograph. I thought, wow, how often are you going to see that?
yeah.
It's neither here nor there, but it was just interesting.
Right, we have some comments. We have a comment here from Erwin Reichstein. There's a great image by Jeffrey James now up at the Carleton University Gallery. It is obviously an enlargement. Any idea how he does it? He is a brilliant photographer.
I don't know that he would have done the enlargement because everything I've seen that he has done, original prints that he has done are contact prints. So I would guess that maybe a lab somewhere was able to do that. And considering how difficult it would be to print a 10 3/8 inch long negative, it was probably scanned and printed, which is actually entirely possible. I'm going to be doing a charity photograph in Port Hope again in the spring using the number 8. So I'll be making a negative that's 8 inches high by about 30 inches or so long, and they're going to sell prints to raise money for the charity. So, and I'm not going to print them because I own a couple of hundred prints.
Will you let us know when that is, Christopher? Will you let us know when that
Yes.
is?
Sure.
Trip. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Port Hope and get in the photograph. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So and I found a place that will scan the negative and will make digital prints. Simply because I've done that before. I'm not making 200 contact prints this big. If you ever want to really hate the process, that's a good way to start. anyway, so I would expect probably he had it scanned and printed. But if you've ever seen the actual contact prints from his, oh man, they're so beautiful. They're just, they're spectacular.
Well, there is a follow-up question here from Ken that he would love to see some of your work, some of your photographs. Are they up online somewhere?
No, they're not. I don't have a website. I'm not really anxious to put them up yet because I'm still working on stuff. So maybe hopefully by next summer, I'll have it. I'm just not ready for that yet. I've been working on the technical stuff for so long that I'm just now starting to get to the sort of creative part of it.
I understand completely, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, sorry about that. I
No.
do have some stuff, some photographs I've done, but I'm not entirely happy with them. Yeah. So,
As you will.
Spoken like a true photographer.
well, what can I
Wonderful.
say?
Fantastic. Ian Archer has a comment. I believe he's got a link up to where on Amazon you can purchase goggles,
Ah,
Oh, okay.
the night vision goggles, I think. So he's put a link up
Yeah,
there.
just
Anyone who's interested.
you just have to make sure that whatever they are, they have the capability of working 140 nanometers.
Right.
Because the less expensive ones are all at 700. Basically, if you can see the LED light, if you can see the little red light that they use to illuminate things,
Mhm.
you can't use that.
oh,
By the time you get to 940 nanometers, the infrared light is no longer. If it's
No
visible,
longer visible
it will
to the human eye.
it will fog the film. Yeah. So at 940 nanometers, the light becomes no longer visible, but then it no longer affects the film.
I see.
Yeah, I
Wow.
turned that. I took me a
That's
while to figure that
fantastic.
one out. I didn't do well in physics in high school, so it took me a while.
And a lot
You
of
could have
blood,
fooled
sweat,
me.
and tears.
Pardon?
And a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Well, you know what? I don't mind failure. I mean,
Okay.
the only thing that's really come easy in this whole thing is Bill Scanlon telling me, he said, go buy some goggles. That was just that was literally a game changer for me. But nothing ever really ever comes that easily. It's always like, even with this number 4 Panoramic, there was a mechanism in here, and I know, again, I'm not a vandal. I don't do this direct stuff, but when I was trying to get trying to get this so I could run film through it, on the take up reel side, there was this spring-loaded flap. I suppose it's there to prevent fat rolls, but it put so much pressure on the film that it made it go all wonky, and it tore it all to pieces, and it was just a mess. So I sort of basically had to go back and fix everything, get rid of that, put a little piece in there to keep the film where it should be. So I've got to the point now where everything will go through where it should go through. But now I've got a tension problem, so I have to sort that one out. But once that's done, then it'll be ready to test, and then I'll find it underexposes everything. But I'm hopeful at this point. But it's a lovely camera. I literally don't make them like this anymore. So
Ian Archer points out that the unit on Amazon is 850 nanometers. Is that going to work, Christopher?
no, it needs to be, if he's going to use aerographic film. I'm not sure about regular film. like, HP5 or Tri-X or whatever it is, that may, what he needs to do is to find the data sheet for the film, and there'll be a graph. And it basically, the exposure goes along and then it drops off. And even with the aerographic film that I have, it shows the exposure dropping off at 730 nanometers. But in fact, it's still sensitive there. It depends on how far it drops off. And that's what I misinterpreted, that it drops off at 730, I can use 730. But no, it goes down and then it doesn't actually go right down until it hits 940. So look at that graph, see where it drops.
So
And that's probably where you could, if you had goggles that, if it drops right off at 830 or 850, then you could probably use 850. But I found with aerial film, I need 940 nanometers in order not to fog the film.
So aerial film has a bit of infrared sensitivity to it. They actually did that. They extended the red sensitivity
Yeah,
in
so it
order
cuts
to
through haze and stuff.
cut through
Yeah.
haze, basically. So that's why it's different. Probably HP5 might work okay.
Yeah,
Have to just
and
check.
850 nanometers is that's pretty far along the scale, so it's probably okay. And that's what I was saying way back when, that I think probably because it's aerographic film, it is more sensitive to infrared than sort of a normal panchromatic film would be. But for aerographic, you need 940 nanometers. The light source from the goggles has to be 940 nanometers.
Go ahead, Salio. Carry on with those chat questions.
All right, so we have here a question from David and Louise asking about Mitchell, Ontario, and whether or not you know that there's of a studio there which had been used continuously by photographers starting with Campbell until the building was knocked down for a community center.
No, I've only lived here for 5 years.
Oh.
So I'm a newcomer. So I don't know that, but I would expect that I could find some information at the Perth County Archives in Stratford.
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah. I'm planning a visit to them because there is apparently a relatively another project that, well, they have a good selection of area Cirkut photographs.
Oh,
And another project that I would like to do is to re-photograph some of these places that were photographed years ago. I actually have some postcards from around this area, a couple from Gotham, from St. Mary's. I think some of those may have been done with the Conan camera because they're smaller than anything that would have come out of a Cirkut. But anyway, I would like to go back and sort of try to find as close as I can where those photographs were taken, and then sort of redo them now, just to have a comparison of the turn of the last century and then the 2020s. So yeah, I'm going to be going over to the archives. What was the name of the gallery or the name of the photographer?
Oh, starting with Campbell, there were 3 or 4 in succession, and I don't remember the name of the one who finished it. And I know who actually had the most information about him, as well as John Kenmire had some of the negatives.
Okay. Well, I can see what I can find out, but I don't know there. There's a young woman who's a photographer now in town, but that would be digital, so that's the devil's work.
Yeah. Oh, and
anything to do with
yes,
that.
they're available also, these photographs through the through the same archives, through the Perth archives that you mentioned, and they're of the community. He was their community
the
photographer
40s.
in the 40s and 50s.
19.
Yeah, 19,
Oh, okay.
40s and 50s and 30s.
Yeah, I haven't heard of them, but I'm sure I've seen photographs done by them, but
Yeah, and but they were used by the paper, like the newspaper as the community photographs and the
right.
typical, of their,
Yeah,
they have an old Boys Day where they, it's like a town reunion where people go back to town for that event. So I just wanted to ask you, since you're there.
yeah. I'm sorry, I'm
That's
too
fine.
new for that.
Okay.
I missed all the good stuff.
Great. We have an update from Ian. He's found another unit at 940 nanometers.
That would be what he wants.
Yeah.
I guess the
Okay,
thing
great.
is, if you had one at 940 nanometers, it would work with any film then. It would certainly work with aerographic film. And that's, I know that Ilford does a run of, what do they call it, extra large format or something. They do a run of large roll film every couple of years. It's really expensive. It's massively expensive film. So, and I mean, if you've got lots of money, that'd be wonderful to have. But it's just, it's a lot out of my budget. So I like aerographic film. I think it works well, and it's easy to use, and I think it's good stuff.
Great. Ken follows up with another question. It's really interesting. Is there a database of photographers that used Cirkut cameras, and possibly where their work may be housed?
You know what? I don't think I've looked for that. I don't think so, because generally collections don't qualify what the medium or what the format was. So any collection that I've seen, you will find if the photographer did Cirkut photographs, they'll be scattered amongst the collection, but they're not identified as Cirkut photographs.
As such, I see.
I think that would be an interesting project for someone to do, but not me.
At best, they might be described as panoramics or yard longs or something like that. There's
Yeah.
various
In the States, the yard longs is a much more common term than it is here.
right.
Yeah. Is there, would you say that there is a telltale a characteristic of a photo made with a Cirkut camera that can help identify it or point us in that direction?
Oh, good. I would say so.
Well,
Yes. There
yes. Okay, I'll let Jamie answer this because he has a lot more experience than I have.
Basically, there were no other cameras that were taking images with a certain negative size. So basically, if you have an 8 by 25-inch print and you can see a certain level of barrel distortion in it, you know that it was done with a Cirkut camera. I mean, pretty much. I mean, no one was enlarging that way. So you have the barrel distortion, you sometimes have some banding, but you also have the size of the negative. Now, if you go down to below 8 inches, like the 5-inch Cirkut camera, you would know it's a Cirkut camera if it's longer than basically 16 inches, because there were no 5-inch swing lens cameras that were longer than 16 inches.
Exactly, yes.
So there were ways of identifying both size and by telling that there is banding and other stuff. And honestly, when you watch movies and TV these days, you'll always be seeing the yard longs in the background. So they're really common.
Yeah.
And the Library of Congress in the United States has a huge collection of Cirkut images, and you can search them online. That's another source.
Very cool.
Yeah. I've had a look at that, and there's some spectacular stuff there. One thing that when you're talking about the barrel effect,
back with something.
something that, oh yeah, there we go.
You see,
Um,
Sally,
the way that, I'm sorry.
Wow.
No, go ahead, Christopher. I'm
Yeah.
interrupting.
I was just going to say that the way that you get, you see a circuit photograph and everyone's in a nice straight line across the image. Well, the way they get that is that the way we get that is that you line up the people in a semicircle around the camera. I have basically a string that I attach to the camera, and then I go and I row for the first row of the photograph with that string. And so they're in a semicircle, equidistant away from the camera, will fill in behind them. And then when that's printed, or when it's exposed, because the people, no matter where they are in that semicircle, they're the same distance away from the lens.
Right.
There is a straight, you notice the background will curve. Like if they're, against a building or something, the wall of the building will have the barrel effect, but the people will be in the straight line.
You see the pathway there, Salio?
Yeah, I can see that. I see the curving there to the left of. Yeah.
In real life, that path is straight,
Right.
but it barrels, right? It's exactly what happens.
How cool.
Exactly what Christopher was
Right, because it's further away from the center of the camera.
exactly right.
Right, and the focal length of the lens determines that too. A short lens will give you much more barrel effect than a longer lens will.
Wow.
So,
Fantastic. All right. Well, I want to share with you something very quickly. I just want to pop my screen in the middle of this Zoom call to show you where we've had people visit us today. And I'm not sure. Can you guys see the screen there?
Yep.
You see the map? We got Europe, we got South America, we have Central America, all over the United States, Australia, and Canada, which is very cool. Very, very. I was just excited when I saw this, and I wanted to make sure that you saw it.
Is this down here? That's Australia? Is that a
Yes,
spot
the
on
bottom
Australia?
left corner. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Right.
wow.
So
People
That's
like
amazing.
panoramas. What can I say?
yeah. Fantastic. All right. More questions? Comments? Okay. Well, Chris, thank you for an exceptional and amazing talk today. It was really great to understand your process, to see your understanding of the technology, your experimentation with it, your your figuring outing of the camera, if you will, the jigs that you made, the all of these different things that you've come to learn, and a lot of the trial and error, and your lack of fear at failing, which I think more of us should be comfortable with. Thank you so much for a fantastic talk. And I want to thank every one of you who registered and who made it out tonight in spite of any Eventbrite issues. Thank you so much for coming, for enjoying this talk, for your questions, and well, what can I say? This is invigorating. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Clint. And thank you, PHSC, for making this program series possible with the hard work you do with your fairs, auctions, trunk sales, and everything else.
Good.
And thank you to our members for making this possible. Hey!
I think you can,
Thank you. It was very enjoyable. Thank you.
thanks for coming out. This is
Thank
great.
you.
We can
Great
probably
presentation.
stop recording now so that Russ Forfar can